So that's what we did for the U.S. Senate debate. How this work? Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. For those of you whom I have not personally met, my name is Paul Stum, and I have the privilege of serving as the 26th president of Cumberland University. And I want to welcome each one of you here tonight. I will tell you that there are very few people in this room, and that's an unfortunate result of the pandemic through which we're all suffering. But I know we have a lot of watchers and participants via the online virtual medium, and I want to welcome each one of you to our debate tonight as well. You all may know the name H.L. Mencken. H.L. Henry Louis Mencken purportedly said that oftentimes democracy is the pathetic belief in the collective wisdom of individual ignorance. And I want you to know tonight we're all about stamping out that individual ignorance. You know, here at Cumberland we award a lot of degrees and we're in the education business, but tonight's not about awarding associate, baccalaureate, or master's degrees. It's about providing a different kind of education. Our intent tonight is to educate the voters, to educate the public of Lebanon, Tennessee, because we have a very important election coming up. And we are very pleased to be able to host this debate on our campus in historic Baird Chapel tonight. I want you to know, too, that our position at Cumberland is that of Switzerland. We are completely neutral. We are not endorsing, we will not say things in support of or in opposition to any party or any candidate. But we're so pleased that all four of these candidates could be here with us tonight to share their views and perspectives and opinions. So I now want to introduce you to our two most able moderators who will be running the debate tonight. Also, Mr. Rusty Richardson, our timekeeper, who will be here holding up signs and warning the candidates when it's near the end of their time. But the moderators first, Mr. Mike Alexiev, editor of the Lebanon Democrat. Thank you, Mike, for being with us tonight. And also Dr. Bill McKee, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Cumberland University. And they are going to now explain the rules of tonight's event. Gentlemen.
The rules tonight. The debate shall last approximately 60 minutes from the start of the moderator's opening to the conclusion of the moderator's closing remarks. Each participant shall have and will stand behind a podium located on the stage. The order of the podium shall be determined by a drawing among the four participants or their representatives prior to the debate. At no time during the debate will any participant move from his designated podium. Participants are not allowed to bring props, charts, diagrams, or other types of displays onto the debate stage. Participants are allowed to make notes at their podium with the pads and pens provided. Participants will not make opening statements. Based on the order drawn before the debate, the first question will be directed to candidate one, who in this case is Mr. Sesternino, who will then have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidates, Mr. Ash, Mr. DeMore, and Mr. Bell, will each have 1.5 minutes to offer their responses to the same question. Following the combined comments from the other candidates, candidate one will then be given 3/4 of a minute, 45 seconds for rebuttal. A timekeeper will indicate when the candidate is approaching the end of their allotted time and when the time has expired. The order of the remaining questions will rotate based on the order drawn before the debate. The moderators may ask follow-up questions on any topic at their discretion for clarification or for other purposes. To maintain decorum and to allow each candidate to be clearly heard, only one candidate will be allowed to speak at a time. Each candidate will be allowed to make a 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. I have the privilege of asking question number one, and it's a two-part question. The first part, in your mind, what does the city government do well? And the second part, and in what areas does it need to improve, and how would you be sure that those improvements are made? The question goes first to Mr. Sesternino.
What does the city do well? We have a great workforce. We have a workforce that's committed to doing their jobs to the best of their ability. Police, fire. One of the unsung departments that we have is recreation. Think about it. The greatest asset that we as human beings have are our children and our grandchildren. And the recreation department manages all the programs that are for our children. They do a very good job of that. Our public safety, our police, our fire, our emergency services. We have an incredibly well-run gas department, our water plant, our wastewater plant. We have some really good departments. What can we improve? Never forget, city government, your people are your product. So when you have people that are delivering a product to you, the customers, which are the taxpayers, it's a flawed product. So we have to have, and one of the things I don't think we're really effective at, is the philosophy of continuous improvement. Where can we get more effective? What can we do better? It should be a process of continuous improvement. And I spent the majority of my life living on military bases. Our city is dirty. Our city is unkempt. And it seems like we're always talking about the next shiny new object, and we don't do the best job of taking care of the businesses and the citizens that are here today. Thank you.
I'm third. I mean, I'll go if you like. Oh, okay. What does the city do well? The city does a lot of things well. I've heard several times, if you get up in the morning and you turn your shower on, you get hot water, the city's at work. They're doing very well. If your garbage is not stacked up in front of your house by the end of the week, the city is doing their job very well. And also with the same thing applies with every department. Recreation, they are one of the busiest departments that we have. It's very interesting to listen to William Porter talk about all of the kids that come through the city's recreation department. On March the 3rd, what the city does well was very well displayed when the tornado came through. By the time that the lights came on again, the city was already picking up waste and trying to get roads open, make sure people were safe. So the city does many things well. Where do we need improvement? I think the one thing that we can improve on is probably customer service. Not everybody's happy when they have to pay their water bill or their tax bill, but if they're late with their water bill, those things. So we have to make sure that, and I have stressed it, that we treat every customer as a king or a queen. Thank you.
Well, I've lived here in Lebanon since 2003, and I find all the departments that I've interacted with are well run, they're staffed quite adequately, and the people are friendly. I know the city has plenty of meetings, especially city council meetings, regularly, and they seem to address most of the issues that are hot on people's minds. As far as what we can do better as a city, I think perhaps some of the relationships, cooperation between citizens and city government officials could be improved. I look forward to doing that. I think we should prioritize spending on more essential items rather than some extraneous things, which perhaps I'll get into a little bit later. And but as I said, I'm pretty satisfied with essential services as far as the utilities coming from city departments.
Thank you. I think our employees are the front porch of our city. And I'm not just talking about the employees that we see every day out on the street. I'm talking about the ones who also work behind the scenes at the water department out by the river. Also at our gas department, it's been mentioned before, our fire and our police, and they're all top notch. And I really think that's the strength of our city, are the people who work for it. One thing I think our city can do better is primarily is budgetary management. As we know, Mayoral raised property taxes 41% last year, and I believe that that type of philosophy does not need to continue, and we can manage that better. Thank you.
I absolutely agree with just about everything was said, especially about the financial management. We've had some missed opportunities. The hotel motel tax generates about $50,000 a month. It was signed into law by the governor on the 24th of May. I would have had a special call before the first meeting in June. We would have approved it in June, so we're getting that revenue June, July, August. I don't believe the city approved it until September. We also could have done a special census, which would have generated about $400,000 on the low end when the mayor was mayor, and we could have had that for about 6 years, because now we're in the middle of a census. We can't do it. We can't do it until we certify. So that's a missed opportunity of about $2.5 million. Thank you.
Second question goes to forgive the plan match. It is often said locally, especially at budget time, that growth does not pay for itself. How do you determine if and when the cost of growth, both in financial and quality of life terms, outweigh the benefits?
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that one more time?
Sure. It is often said locally, especially at budget time, that growth does not pay for itself. How do you determine if and when the cost of growth, both in financial and in quality of life terms, outweigh the benefits?
Okay. We all know that we have been in a tremendous growth period for several years now. And I have been asked many times why, with all the growth that we have, there should be a lot of tax money coming in. It really doesn't work that way. I read in a magazine not too long ago that when you have a lot of growth in a community, it usually takes 3 to 4 years or more for the taxes to catch up with the growth. In 2010, we had about 26,000 people, and now a rough estimate is that we have about 40,000 people. Now, all of those people want and deserve city services. We also came out of a recession in 2008. Well, the recession started in 2008. We came out in 12, 13, 14. We're still working on it. But we were shorthanded. We had to we added about 46 people to the payroll. We had to have equipment that we haven't bought in years. We had to play catch up. And that was one reason that we were faced with the tax increase this year.
Well, as I said before, prioritize spending for essentials services to the city, such as our gas system department, water treatment, etc. And I think if we pay close attention to our infrastructure needs as we grow, just kind of strike a balance between this red-hot growth that we have, and I suspect we're going to have even more next year when we get through this virus situation. I think if we pay attention to as I said, the infrastructure needs as we grow, I think both efforts will walk hand in hand. I think we'll be very successful in that regard.
Thank you. I think the key to your question is we have to plan for growth. It means protecting our established neighborhoods. It also means having the plans in place, such as the comprehensive plan that when I was on city council several years ago, we approved that plan to be studied. It was meant to take a year. It's over 3 years later and it's still not approved. Without planning, you get overwhelmed by growth, and the situation comes up that you just mentioned. Growth doesn't pay for itself, and then all of a sudden, you're in a financial situation. Another important part of growth is infrastructure, and that's not just roads. I was talking to a lady the other day, and she said that since some new houses have been built near her, her water pressure has dropped. Now, I don't know if that's because of the new construction or not, but those are the kinds of things that we have to investigate. So planning for growth is important, not just to get the kind of developments in here we want, but also in the financial situation like you just mentioned.
Mr. Cesternino?
We absolutely have to plan. In the last time at the chamber, Rick said there's about 8,000 single-family homes that have been approved, and we have just a tad under 2,000 apartments. That's 10,000. Just a husband and a wife moved into them. In the next 6 years, we can expect 20,000 people. You throw a child in there, and you're realistically looking at 30,000. How are we prepared for that? What are we doing to manage that? It's absolutely not going to pay for itself, but we also have some advantages. We have the assets of the lake. We have the assets of the interstate. We have the assets of a secondary institution in Cumberland. We have the assets of an airport, public transit, but we also now have an asset for the Vanderbilt healthcare. And given that type of an asset, one of the things that we should be recruiting is some over 55 communities. If you're looking at Wilson County Schools paying $9,000 per student, and somebody comes in with 2 kids with all their taxes, we're easily upside down $18,000 from get-go. But if we attract some of these older 55 communities that are going to use the advantages of the new cancer center that's coming and the opportunities that Vanderbilt Healthcare now offers the city of Lebanon, that would really help defer some costs, because that would get some money into the tax base, and the over 55s, of which I will be on one very soon, we put more money into the economy than we're required to take out. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Ash, you have 45 seconds.
Okay. We obviously are a growing community, and it brings a lot of good things, and it also brings a lot of opportunities for us to do better and to provide services. As I pointed out before, all these new people who come into Lebanon, they want the same services that everybody has: water, gas, recreation, police, fire, all of those services, and it requires money to do those things, and we have to be prepared. When I came into office, planning was one of the big things that I knew we had to do, and I appointed the Comprehensive Plan Committee, the Hartman Drive Committee, and the Sparta Pike Committee. 3 of those are ready to go. 1 is nearly ready.
Now for our third question, and again, it's a 2-part question. The first part is, what do you consider the biggest single challenge facing Lebanon? And the second part of that question is, what is your plan for overcoming it? And we'll begin with Mr. DeMore.
Well, right now, I think the biggest challenge that we have facing Lebanon is the flooding problem. I was asked a number of weeks ago, along with the other candidates, to come up with a solution to the flooding problem, not only in downtown, but in the neighborhoods as well. I came up with that plan. The details are on my website, howtheyvoted.com, but basically, the downtown flooding situation, I've looked at the plan, the Army Corps of Engineers. I didn't see really what I felt was a pragmatic solution. I think my solution entails briefly taking where the drainage ditch is now, put some concrete or composite constructed drain pipes in there, very large ones, and bury them as far as the water drainage coming in after heavy storms and the rising creeks underneath the city. Put the pipes approaching the city, under the buildings, and on out the other side of the city, taking special care with further drainage on downstream to make sure that we're not just pushing the water down to a neighborhood somewhere. Just identify the areas where the water is stagnant and collecting and causing a backup. Clear those areas as far as it's going to take. I don't mean put pipe all the way down to Cumberland River, but pipe under the city, coming into the city, leaving the city, under the city, and then take a look at the drainage ditches to make sure that the water flows away from the city and on down into areas where it will not cause flooding in other neighborhoods and residential areas. As far as the neighborhoods are concerned, I think if we every year address and identify first and then address the issues of the water where it's stagnant, where it's collected, perhaps debris is there, maybe overgrowth, have a cooperation with the neighbors helping neighbors, and I think we can tackle that problem annually.
During Mayor Ash's first budget, he told the city council that everything was okay, and he asked for some increases in impact fees, and that was it. At his next budget, there was a $1.8 million shortfall, and there was a 41% property tax increase. As we go into the future with COVID, we don't know what the economy will be. During the time of that increase, our sales tax revenues were at an all-time high, but the COVID will have a ripple effect. In the future, we cannot continue to have that type of mentality. As mayor, I will go in and I will look for cuts in the budget. I won't ask for across-the-board cuts, but because some departments work more efficiently than others, but I do expect cuts in all departments. And the reason is because we have small businesses, locally owned businesses, homeowners who are struggling, who may struggle in the future. And we need to take as much burden off them as possible. When people have to tighten their belts, they expect the government to do it as well, and that'll be my plan.
Mr. Cisternino.
I believe the biggest issue that the city of Lebanon has right now, and what we have to have, it's leadership and fiscal responsibility. How am I going to address that? I have 30 continuous years in leadership in both the public and the private sector in the military. I've supervised thousands of people. I've supervised risk, legal, business development. I ran the entire Pacific Northwest for a Fortune 100 best companies to work for. I have the experience. I'm a Department of Defense certified financial manager, and I served 2 terms on the Lebanon City Council as the mayor pro tem. And during that time, I was the most knowledgeable, other than the finance commissioner, about our dollars. When I first came in, we had roughly $5 million in our reserves. When I left, now we have an incredible amount of money in our reserves. We need to plan with these resources, and we need to prioritize our projects with that money. It was a no-brainer when the Army Corps of Engineers came in and said, give us $700,000, we'll give you $2.1 million to do a project. That it was a no-brainer. We should have got that done before. And flooding is an intergenerational issue where we have to talk about the funding and how we're going to plan that. We have to, one of the things that I did when I was on the council, refinance all our debt. When I was on the council with Finance Commissioner Springer, we got every single note under 3%. Now with interest rates around 0, where is it? And then I'm going to ask the department heads every year with their budget to submit 2, 5, 7.5, and 10% budget cuts, because we have to plan before. When we need it, it's too late for the plan. We have to be proactive, not reactive. Thank you.
Mr. Ash.
Okay. When I first came into office, I stated that the biggest problem that the city is going to face was growth, rapid growth, and it was. At this time, I will say that the growth is manageable, but that is probably still our greatest problem. The first thing that I did when I came into office was to introduce impact fees to developers, especially on apartments. We were having a lot of problems with apartments coming in. Almost everywhere you turn around, we were getting new apartments. We placed with the council, placed an impact fee of $1,500 per unit on apartments. This is to help with the infrastructure problems that are caused by the apartments. The growth of apartments in Lebanon has slowed down. Now, we're coming back with different types of apartments now, and it's coming back. We need affordable housing, and we're getting affordable housing. Another good example is on Carver Lane. We issued an additional impact fee on Carver Lane to developers to help widen the road, put up traffic signals, and do the things that those developments are causing. So with those improvements, things are better. Even with the tornado and COVID, we still have growth, which is a good thing, and we're still managing that growth.
Mr. DeMore, your 45-second rebuttal.
With my 40 years experience in corporate business, I know about budgets, how to meet budgets, how to work with various people in spending money, earning money. I feel confident that I can work comfortably with our financial department within the city, those experts, to examine the various departments and see where things can be tightened up in regard to the budgets, and some of the other departments may need more money. So I think it's kind of a taking a balance to the approach of saving here and perhaps spending a little bit more there in a pragmatic way, again, to prioritize spending.
Mr. Bell, this question is for you and the other candidates, but we start with you on this one. Many people feel like our nation has never been more politically divided than it is now. Whether it is right versus left, Democrat versus Republican, or a whole host of divisive social issues, there seems to be little middle ground on which we agree. Although the position of mayor is purely nonpartisan, what plans are you considering to help bring the citizens of Lebanon back together as one community once this election cycle is over?
You know, I've walked thousands of steps in neighborhoods in every ward of this city. And I've talked to people in every neighborhood, and I hear the same thing over and over again, that people want the same things for Lebanon. They want better financial management. They want smart growth. They want our established neighborhoods protected. They want our quality of life enhanced. And they want Lebanon's identity protected. And I hear that over and over again. So I believe our city is more together than we may realize. And I understand we have issues and we have discussions, we have debates and we have disagreements. But I believe Lebanon as a whole is mostly united. As mayor, I want to be the mayor for everyone. And I want to be the mayor for every ward. And I want to accomplish things for every ward. Yes, this is a partisan world we live in. But on the local level, you know, we deal with individuals. We deal with people on a personal level. And I think if you look people in the eye and tell them the truth and tell them, you know, what's going on, I think that brings people together very well. So that's why I plan on doing as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sesternino?
I think the best thing that anybody can do in a time of strife is be a leader and be an example. Have integrity, mean what you say what you mean, don't make a lot of promises, but when you look a man in the eye and shake their hand, keep your word every time. We need to actually do things for our citizens and for our businesses. Since the 3rd of March, we have tens of millions of dollars in the bank. I would love to see how much we've spent on that to help our businesses and help our people that are struggling. I got term limits. When I was first elected, one of my campaign promises was to get term limits. People said, you're never going to get elected officials to vote on their own career. When I left the council, we had term limits. And how was that? It was incremental buy-in, it was discussion, and it was continuing to talk about it and get people where. If you give people information, they're going to agree with you if the information is right. But it's like I tell anybody, if you walk into a room and you lay your plan out and it's about 50-50, maybe you move forward. But if 19 out of 22 people are against your plan, you're probably going to need to shift fire, step back, and reevaluate what you're looking at. But we've got to focus on our people, focus on our businesses, stop chasing all the shiny new items when we've got cemeteries that are in disarray, when we've got grass growing out of the sidewalks on the west side, which is our newest side of town, when we have streets and sidewalks that don't get any attention. When we start taking care of our people and our businesses here, that will correct a lot of the issue. Thank you.
Mr. Ash?
Okay. Leadership during times of strife. I think anybody who's paying any attention at all knows that we're living in difficult times, nationwide, statewide, and there are issues here in Lebanon also. However, I think if we look at the citizens of Lebanon, how we face problems, we're way ahead of most anyone else. Recently, we had an issue concerning racism and the statue of General Hatton, and I probably shouldn't bring that up, but let's talk about it. Part of our community wanted the statue taken down. Another part of our community wanted the statue left alone. Now, what I did do, and I think this shows some leadership, is to bring both sides together. The sons and daughters of the Confederacy actually own the statue. Whether it's moved or not is their decision, not the city's. I had two gentlemen who were adamant about wanting the statue removed. I mean, they were willing to help with the cost of finding a place to put it. They didn't want to just tear it down and destroy it, which I thought was very well received. But my plan was to take the two issues, bring them together, and let's talk. At this point, we have not solved the problem, but we have been talking, and we've learned a lot over the last few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeMore?
Beginning my first day as mayor, I will work very hard to build a new sense of trust, mutual respect, and cooperation between city government officials and our citizens. The divisions among us in this country are nothing new. Right from the beginning, when we were arguing about how our U.S. Constitution was going to come together and ratifying it, we had the same kinds of division between citizens. I want to bring back a sense that citizens are going to know that everybody in city government is going to simply obey the law, all the laws, according to the Constitution and according to our city charter laws. I know in recent years, there's been some lawsuits against the city for various reasons. I didn't see any reason for that as long as people, government side, citizen side, as long as we obey the law. I think once the citizens get an idea that in my administration and throughout city government, people are going to start with simply obeying all the laws. I think they're going to learn to respect quote-unquote politicians again. I think I'd love to see more of a cooperation between citizens coming to the city council meetings, and a real cooperative, respectful relationship between citizens and government.
Mr. Bell, you have 45 seconds.
You know, Lebanon is not Washington. We have 6 city councilors, and I believe all of them are there to do what they think is best for Lebanon. This is not the swamp, as a lot of people have termed Washington. You know, this is something different. This is neighbors working together to try to make Lebanon a better place. But there's one more thing I want to mention, though, and that's about quality of life. You know, when people talk about quality of life, they talk about different things, but there's one thing that's universal about quality of life. People want to feel safe in their homes or neighborhoods. That's my job as mayor. That's the police chief's job. And over the summer, as we've seen some terrible deaths, you know, one of the things I remember is that years ago, Mr. Adams was singing home, and a drug raid went to the wrong house and went to his house and killed him. Lebanon's not untouched by things like that, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you.
The next question allows each of you to spend 1 minute answering it. So it's a change in our format. And the question is, why should the voters of Lebanon pick you as the next mayor over the other 3 candidates? Mr. Cisternino, we will begin with you.
I served 2 terms on the city council. I was elected mayor pro tem twice. I'm the only person on this podium where Bernie and Rick voted for me to be the mayor pro tem. I have more leadership. I have more executive experience. I by far have more financial experience, training, and credentials than any other men here. But these are all good people up here. They all want to do the right thing for this city. And you're going to have different choices, different levels of experience. But I am by far the most experienced in the roles that I think are important to the city. And that's managing your money, that's leading department heads, that's creating a mission, a vision, goals and objectives, and then actually executing that. Thank you.
Mr. Ash.
Okay. I won't have to disagree with Rob for just a second. I think I have the most experience in leadership and government of anybody up here. I was elected to the county commission in 1994, served as chairman of the budget and the finance committee, chairman of the emergency management committee, served on education, JECDB, and other committees while on the commission. Also owned a business for 21 years, creative photography, owned the square in Lebanon. I know what some of the issues are. I know what it is to knuckle down and meet a payroll and keep a business operating for 21 years. As mayor, my record is clear. I am the only one who provided leadership in a time of turmoil, tornado, COVID, which we're still working with. We had 4,000 volunteers for the tornado. We got the city picked up and back to running very quickly.
Mr. DeMoore.
Well, to begin with, I've never been a politician. I have nearly 40 years' experience in the corporate and small business world, negotiating and fulfilling contracts, managing budgets, people, and logistics on a national and international basis. My experience in television, radio, and internet production has made me successful in creative marketing and sales, which makes me uniquely qualified to promote Lebanon as an exciting, vital place to work, play, raise a family, and invest. Examine my website, howtheyvoted.com, for my various plans, exciting plans for growth and preservation here in Lebanon, and you'll see the exciting ideas that I bring as your next mayor.
Mr. Bell.
Thank you. I'm not a career politician. I'm not a salesman. I grew up in the business world here in Lebanon, so I do have that experience. For the past 20 years, I've been an educator. And I believe I bring qualities to the office that will take Lebanon to a positive future. One of those is the ability to communicate. Let people know what's going on in their city and let people know where their tax dollars are being spent, but also the ability to work with people and listen to their suggestions. And that's employees, council members, citizens, and also leaders throughout Middle Tennessee. I can take that information and make educated, informed decisions, because we all know a mayor has to make tough decisions, but they need to be educated decisions, not fly-by-night decisions. And then I can work with a sense of urgency, because that's what we need so the future doesn't get ahead of us.
Before the debate tonight, each of you drew a number, and as I understand it, Mr. Bell, Mr. Cisternino, Mr. Ash, and Mr. Demure in that order. And each of you now have a 2-minute opportunity for a closing statement, and we'll begin with Mr. Bell.
Thank you. Well, I'm a Lebanon native, and my family's been part of the business community here for 70 years. And as I just mentioned, I grew up in that business. And I've also have a passion to serve. I'm the city historian. I serve on several nonprofits here in town: Empower Me Center, Historic Lebanon, Fillers Grove. But also I serve regionally. Coming region tomorrow, I serve on that board, and that's an organization that helps cities throughout Middle Tennessee face growth challenges and helps them strategize on how to face those. I also attend the Transit Citizen Leadership Academy, which helps us navigate through complex traffic issues. You know, I was talking to a gentleman just the other day, and he said that on his street, a residential street, semi-trucks are using that street now as a cut-through. He's called Mayor Ash several times. Nothing's been done about it. That's not a complex issue. That's easy to fix. That's why I want to run for mayor, to take care of Lebanon today, but also take care of Lebanon in the future. My platform covers 4 areas. First, financial responsibility. Make sure we do not have tax increases like we had last year. Secondly, manage growth, smart growth. Make sure we protect our established neighborhoods. Make sure we enhance quality of life. Make sure that we preserve Lebanon's identity. You know, we are Lebanon. We're not some city in some other part of the country. We are Lebanon, and this is a special place, and we need to make sure in the future that we keep it that way. And that requires planning that is not in place at the moment. If we do not plan, the future will get ahead of us, and we'll never be able to catch up. Thank you.
Mr. Nino.
I've been leading people continuously for the last 30 years. For a Fortune 100 best company, I ran the entire Pacific Northwest. I'm a graduate of the MTAS Leadership Institute 1-2, the Municipal Managers Program. I'm a DoD certified financial manager. I'm a graduate of FEMA's Emergency Management Institute, and my entire career has been in emergency management, and I have multiple deployments as a serving member of the United States military, which I still serve. I served 2 terms as the mayor pro tem for the city of Lebanon. We were fiscally responsible. We grew the reserves to numbers that have not been seen in the history of Lebanon. Somebody put on Facebook the other day, they said, it's great. I can really get this city of Lebanon race because it's a multiple choice question. A for Ash, B for Bell, C for Cesternino, D for Demore. All of us that went to school remember what our teacher said. If you are not 100% sure of the answer, always pick C. On election day, choose C, vote for Rob Cesternino. We will lower the taxes, we will clean up this city, and you know what? We will say no to apartments. Thank you.
Mr. Ash.
Okay, I'm going to use my last 2 minutes a little bit differently. Most of you are familiar with me. I've been in public life since 1994. You either like me, you like the way I run things, or you don't. I hope you do, and hope you vote for Bernie this time. I want to use the rest of my time to talk about the tax hike, which people say is the 41% tax hike is ridiculous and too high. I want to give you the history of the property tax in Lebanon. In 1992, the property tax rate was 78 cents. For the next 20 years, there was no property tax increase at all. The tax rate dropped to 34 cents. In 2013, there was a 43% tax hike sponsored by Mayor Craig Head, voted on by the council, including Mr. Sister Nino. I'm not saying that was the wrong thing to do, but I think it's probably the right thing to do. Next 6 years, no tax hike. You can't run a business and you can't run a government without some kind of increases along the way. Instead of 41-cent tax hike, I want you to look at it this way. My tax hike was from 60 cents to 85 cents. From 1994, 27 years, the total increase in 27 years was under 8 cents. 8 cents. About around 8 or 9% increase over 27 years. We came from a recession into a booming business a booming city when things were prospering. We needed more revenue. Do you want a mayor who will make the tough choices or a mayor who will kick the can down the road for somebody else to take care of? Thank you.
Time.
Mr. DeMoore.
We, the candidates, are here tonight because we want to make a difference. Our answers have been given because we believe we can make this a better city for you, citizens. But during the last 6 years, my 3 opponents have had their chance. They've been on the city council and one as mayor. I bring a bold new leadership to city government. I invite you to review my website, howtheyvoted.com, and examine my prosperity and preservation economic plans for Lebanon. Review my specific plans to permanently solve our flooding problem in the downtown area and in your neighborhoods. I also address the traffic issues around town. My plan to prioritize spending toward essential services to you, and my plans to increase business and jobs at our airport. You and I know Lebanon is growing rapidly, and I believe with proper infrastructure planning, we can meet these growth challenges and all of us will prosper together. Vote for me, I'll work for you. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank each of you tonight for being here, for sharing your vision of the city, and perhaps end by echoing Dr. Stumm's opening remarks. We want to thank you, and we want you to, as you move forward, to understand the importance of this city and what it means to people here. So thank you and good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was quick.